I think that the internet is going to be one of the major forces for reducing the role of government. The one thing that's missing, but that will soon be developed, is a reliable e-cash, a method whereby on the internet you can transfer funds from A to B without A knowing B or B knowing A.
What is a Bitcoin?
What is Bitcoin? What backs a Bitcoin?
You put some of your money, real money, online, and it turns into Bitcoin.
Thanksgiving dinner, my grandmother asked me, what the heck is this Bitcoin stuff anyway, right? And I said to her, do you remember when Visa cards first came out? You were used to paying with cash or with a check, and then a Visa came out. It was this weird payment system that you didn't understand. And she said, yeah, I remember that. I said, well, Bitcoin is just the next evolution of another payment system.
Bitcoin. By now, you've probably heard of it. The wild fluctuations in its price has gained the attention of the mainstream financial media. But Bitcoin is much more than just your average investment. Beneath all the hype and hysteria lies what could be the most important technology of our lifetimes. So what exactly is it? To fully appreciate the characteristics that make Bitcoin a potentially world-changing technology, we first need to understand what money is.
Currency started developing 6,000 to 9,000 years ago, some sort of medium of exchange, and people used something of value. Societies around the world, though, started to select gold and silver as their primary currency about 3,000 years ago, and then about 680 BC, they became money when they were minted into coins of equal weights. Governments started creating representative currencies where you deposit your gold and silver, or they have gold and silver in the treasury and they come out with notes that are basically a claim check on the gold. So they're supposed to be as good as gold because you can always convert them into gold.
Throughout history, precious metals were chosen as money, not through government decree, but because of their unique features. Gold is rare, easily recognizable, portable, durable, and divisible. Above all, because gold is difficult to find and labor-intensive to mine, refine, and mint, it has always been perceived as a store of value.
At Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, delegates from 44 allied and associate countries arrived for the opening of the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference.
In modern history, as World War II was coming to an end, in 1944, the Allied nations met at the small town of Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Here, they drafted a new financial system, which would stabilize the world's financial system once the war ended. With the United States poised to enter a golden age of prosperity, the U.S. dollar was chosen to be the world's reserve currency.
The Bretton Woods system was created after the Second World War at the Bretton Woods Conference in New Hampshire. And rather than using gold as the means of exchange between countries, as was the case under the old gold standard, the dollar was going to be used. The dollar was chosen because back then it was as good as gold.
Under this new system, the countries of the world would tie their currencies at a fixed rate to the US dollar. And because most of the world's gold was held in US vaults, the US dollar would be backed by gold at a fixed price of $35 per ounce. This created a system where the currencies of the world were effectively backed by gold through the US dollar.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
The Bretton Woods system lasted for about 25 years, but in August of 1971, President Richard Nixon called for an emergency press conference where he announced foreign countries would no longer be able to convert their US dollar holdings into gold. This surprise move would come to be known as the Nixon shock. With this one announcement, President Nixon effectively created our current monetary system, a system where no currency is backed by gold or anything of value. This is what is known as a fiat currency.
Fiat currency is currency that's backed by nothing except government promises. The word fiat is a Latin word, and it basically means currency that's circulating by force. If people have confidence in that currency, and if there's enough government force, that will enable the currency to circulate for a period of time until people lose confidence in the currency.
Money is a medium of exchange, and the way it has evolved is that it's always something of intrinsic value until the modern age, when the politicians say, well, we don't need anything of intrinsic value anymore. All we need is political decree. We can say this is money, this piece of paper is money. Now money has a new characteristic. But underneath it all, there's this same concept in place that nobody ever seems to challenge, and that is that governments have a right to declare something of no value to be money, and you must accept it. That's really the problem, and it's still the problem today.
Without anything tangible backing the currencies we use today, governments around the world have been able to issue unlimited amounts of new currency without restraint. And with the advent of the digital age, currencies around the world are now digits in a global banking database. So what is Bitcoin? Well, simply put, it's a digital currency, much like the electronic currency we use today. But it's also the payment network which facilitates the transfer of this new digital currency from one person to another.
Bitcoin's a new internet protocol that enables the transmission of value over a communications channel. You can think of it like being able to send a gold coin as easily as you send an email. You can send any amount of money to anyone in the world, anytime, can't be seized, can't be confiscated, can't be frozen. Very useful technology.
So Bitcoin is a digital currency and it is a payment system. So it's a payment system in the same way that bank networks are, or PayPal. Those are all payment systems. But it's also a currency. So PayPal and banks use the dollar as their currency. The Bitcoin payment system uses Bitcoins as its currency. So they both have the same name.
What is your opinion of disruptive digital currencies such as Bitcoin?
If you're looking for the idea that a currency doesn't really have to be something physical, it can be something that's virtual, that's the system we already have. You know, and if you want it to be, I want a way to make payments electronically, that's, you know, credit cards. I mean, so exactly what it is that this thing is supposed to be doing that we don't already mostly do.
Bitcoin is different from other fiat currencies in a couple ways, but not the way people think. So most people think it's different because it is a digital currency, but fiat currencies are also digital, right? So the dollar is a digital currency, the euro is a digital currency. They're all just ones and zeros in the banks of the world. So it's not that Bitcoin is digital that makes it unique. It's unique in that it cannot be created out of thin air. So dollars, euros, yen, these can all be created out of thin air by people who have permission to do so, which is generally a central bank. Bitcoin has no ability to create it out of thin air. So it is a scarce digital asset.
Unlike the banking system we currently use, where bureaucrats meet behind closed doors and determine and regulate the supply of new currency, mathematics and cryptography are used to regulate the creation of new bitcoins. The Bitcoin network is decentralized, meaning that instead of transactions and account balances being stored on a central computer or database, Bitcoin's ledger of accounts, more commonly known as the blockchain, is distributed across tens of thousands of computers around the world.
There's something called Napster. We all remember Napster. We could download music and movies from Napster, but after a while it got so big and popular, the government came in, shut it down because of copyright infringements. No more Napster, right? So then somebody created something called the BitTorrent network. What's this? This is a software people run on their computers that allows people to file share. So if you run the software, you can go to things like Pirate Bay or Views or BT Junkie, and you can download any music or any movies you want, and they can't stop it because it's not a centralized location. Well, Bitcoin is the currency that runs on the BitTorrent network.
Why was gold and silver considered money for the last 4,000 years is because
It took work and effort to make that nice, beautiful coin. They had to dig it out of the ground and refine it, and the crucibles and the furnaces, and stamp it into a nice, beautiful coin. And that took work. So you didn't have to trust anybody that they were going to work for you. The work was already done. Well, Bitcoin, proof of work, is the same thing, right? You have to hash away and solve all these math problems. You have to have the chips and the electricity and yada, yada, yada to create a Bitcoin. It costs today about $800 to make a Bitcoin.
I believe that Bitcoin has multiple levels of intrinsic value. The properties like being unconfiscatable, properties like this censorship-resistant value transfer that no one can stop you from sending. More importantly, what gives it intrinsic value is the productive capacity and the brain power of some of the brightest developers in the world that have chosen to work on this open source protocol. And this productive capacity of some of the brightest minds that are building it is what truly gives it value.
All Bitcoin transactions are cryptographically verified by thousands of computers on the Bitcoin network. These very powerful computers, known as miners, expend a massive amount of energy and processing power to verify the integrity of each and every transaction.
So the miners basically validate transactions. All these transactions are flying around, and they have not yet been formally vetted by the network. If the miner believes the transactions are valid, it will put them in the block, and the block then becomes part of the blockchain. And over time, that becomes the record of truth. And so what that means is that if you receive Bitcoin and a few blocks happen after you receive it, no one can ever take that money away from you because the blocks have been stuck into the blockchain, they can't be reversed, and you know that the money is truly yours.
The decentralized nature of the Bitcoin network eliminates a single point of failure and makes it impossible to be hacked or to be shut down. Bitcoin transactions are transmitted peer-to-peer without the need for a third party, meaning that the user is in complete control of their money.
It's impossible to be shut down. That's the beautiful thing about it. There is no Bitcoin place. You can't shoot Bitcoin.
It has no center of gravity, it has no headquarters, you can't shut it down.
The only way you could is to shut off the internet. Your average person has absolutely no idea how their email works, but it works, and that's all that really matters. And Bitcoin's very similar to that. But as far as what I would do to tell people or describe to people who don't know about Bitcoin what it is, I would say it's a form of money that you can just use on your phone or your computer in today's digital age where everyone's on the internet, that is much faster to send than most of the banks. And it has, for at least since its inception in 2009, risen in value.
For new users, the inner workings of Bitcoin can be quite complex and daunting. But what's important is how this revolutionary technology changes how money is transferred globally.
Right now, every single payment that you make to another person goes through an intermediary. Either PayPal or bank or Visa or MasterCard. And more importantly, the governmental jurisdiction decides if you're allowed to make that payment. That payment could be stopped halfway through, and then you have to try and get your money back. With Bitcoin, no one can stop it. The moment you decide to send another person digital value, you can just send it. And there is nobody in your way. There is no one that has to give you permission to pay another person money, and all they need is an internet connection.
This has the potential to displace the need for banks as a trust institution. If you and I exchange currency or have commerce using Bitcoin and it goes on the ledger, on the blockchain, we don't need a bank to confirm that that is a valid transaction.
One of the differences between Bitcoin and the banking system is it doesn't require a third party to perform. When you make a deposit into a checking account or a savings account, you are actually loaning the bank your currency. They now have title to it, and they have a liability on their books to pay you back one day, but they get to do anything they want with it. And you have this intermediary, this third party, counterparty that has to perform for you to be able to get your currency back. Cryptocurrencies invert the power structure. It isn't a few people at the top controlling a whole bunch of people at the bottom. The power goes to the individual.
In the same way that the internet flattened access to information and allowed anyone in the world with an internet connection to learn basically anything they wanted to know and to communicate with anyone else on Earth. Bitcoin does that with money. So now anyone on the planet, no matter their age or the arbitrary geographic location in which they were born or the arbitrary rules of the people that govern over them, that person can now engage economically with anyone else in the world directly. And that's profoundly powerful.